know why we celebrate Halloween? A long, long time ago, it was a night of great power. When the days grew short, all across the land, huge bonfires were lit, and they dressed up in costumes, hoping to ward off the evil spirits, especially the boogeyman.
It's Halloween season 2021, which means it's time for my annual Halloween movie video. And man, I have been dreading this one. Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. I knew the day was soon approaching that I had to cover it. Curse of Michael Myers is the conclusion to what's known as the Thorn Trilogy, which is Halloween 4, 5, and 6, starting with Jamie Lloyd, and the saga of her uncle Michael Myers. And while I've always found this movie entertaining, it's not good.
Enough! That is Michael Myers bullshit!
I mean, what else can you do with Michael Myers after 4 previous movies, except try to rewrite the formula and do some craziness? There's multiple reasons why Halloween 6 ended up being the mess it is, going all the way back to creating the idea of what it was going to be. After Halloween 5's reception was very lackluster compared to Halloween 4, something that can happen when you rush a sequel a year later, Halloween producer Mustafa Akkad felt the series strayed too far from its roots, so the whole series was put on hold. And of course the solution was to further stray from the roots. At least that's what happened. But how did we get to that point? Before we ended up with The Curse of Michael Myers, Halloween 6 was going to be a movie called Halloween 666, of course, Origin. How generic. Quentin Tarantino had a script idea going where the mysterious Man in Black and Michael Myers were essentially taking a road trip down Route 66 and killing people along the way. That might have been entertaining, especially if it was a Quentin Tarantino thing, but he was never officially hired. And I kid you not, John Carpenter was asked to come back, and his suggestion was to set the movie in a space station. Michael Myers in space.
In space.
Why didn't they just run with that? That would have been awesome.
Bullshit!
The proposal, of course, was rejected, but the final movie actually does make a quick jab at that storyline through a radio broadcast talking about Michael going to space.
No one controls Michael Myers, not even the CIA. He took out 8 agents while they had him at Langley. They couldn't control him, so they packed him up in a rocket and shipped him off to space.
Thank you.
You don't want to hear the facts, man.
Thank you very much.
The situation is that the CIA...
Michael Myers in space. Come on, next.
They went through a million ideas until one day screenwriter and longtime Halloween fan Daniel Farrens met with producer Mustafa Akkad with a notebook filled with ideas for Halloween 6. Really deep ideas filled with research on the history of Halloween, bios of every character, detailed histories of multiple family lines, research on the thorn symbol seen in Halloween 5. Then he explained how it could all be explored in Halloween 6. And I think this is where Halloween 6 falls apart even before it starts production. It commits that horror movie mistake where they try to explain way too damn much. They try to answer the question of why does Michael do what he does? Why does he always seem to get back up? And it gets really convoluted. Sometimes these sort of things are better when they're left mysterious. I don't feel you ever need an explanation behind Michael other than he's the embodiment of pure evil. And you may notice from the title of this video, it's a retrospective of 2 cuts. Well, before Halloween 6 had its full theatrical release, like most movies, it had a test screening. The test screenings did really bad, so the movie suffered through a ton of reshoots. Which, if there's enough reshooting, that typically means your movie is going to end up being a mess, and it sure as hell did. When the movie finally came out, it bombed critically, it bombed financially. So much that Halloween 6 almost murdered the series. Any potential continuation to the storyline in 6 was axed completely. In fact, the next movie, Halloween H2O, was a whole reset of the timeline. It completely erased Halloween 4 Halloween 5, and Halloween 6 from existence. They never happened. That's how much of a mess The Curse of Michael Myers was. But there was hope for Halloween 6 still. After the movie released on home video, the original work print of Halloween 6 was discovered that featured 45 minutes of alternate footage that made for a very different movie. Through the years, this mysterious cut of the movie that had never been officially released gained a cult following, and it made its way around in the form of illegal bootleg DVDs. I remember I bought it myself at a flea market shop for like $5 that was filled with bootleg DVDs. Of course, eventually he did get raided by the police and that store was shut down. I did have the producer's cut on DVD and it was a horrible quality. Since the footage was never finalized or cleaned up, it was ugly to watch. But with the 2014 Blu-ray release, the producer's cut has an official HD high-definition quality Blu-ray release. Got Theatrical Cut and the producer's cut right there, side by side. It's a really cool thing to own, and it was really exciting watching it for the first time in actual high quality. So we're going to explore both of these cuts. I wouldn't say the producer's cut is a drastically better movie, but it does explain things a bit better, and the last act is totally different. It's crazy how different it actually is. Let's start with the 1995 theatrical cut. The producer's cut doesn't exist. We know nothing about it. We only know what we saw in theaters. The movie starts off with a screaming, frantic woman in labor about to push out a baby. And then she finishes giving birth in some weird cult-looking candle-lit area and her baby gets taken away. Then this cult is praying over the baby and you hear this generic monologue about evil and how it never truly dies. And describing Michael Myers, though he's not seen anywhere here. Turns out this new mom is Jamie Lloyd, the little girl from Halloween 4 and Halloween 5. How did she end up here? We don't know. Last time we saw Michael and Jamie, he was locked up in the police station at the end of 5. The man in black shot the station up and helped him escape, and then young Jamie's freaking out. So now she's here somehow, and this random nurse feels bad and helps her escape with her newborn baby, something Michael doesn't seem to appreciate very much. And there's Michael, he's here too. And he's after Jamie again. Okay, so this is understandable and simple so far. Just like Halloween 4 and 5, he's trying to kill his niece and anybody that gets in the way. Now you have the added drama of a baby being in the mix. But now Michael wants the baby too, but it's never really clear why. What does he want with the baby? Normally you'd think, okay, the baby's family and that's Michael's thing, is he goes after his family. But if Michael and Jamie were underground with this cult, he could have killed the baby any time. Or even her, before she even gave birth. And who's the baby's father anyway? We'll get to that eventually. The movie doesn't explain it, but it does throw in some little clues later on that make you wonder what the hell is going on. And that's the thing with this movie, it attempts to explain so much, but it also leaves you with a million questions. Or if someone asked you for a detailed plot synopsis, you're not even sure what to say. And Jamie doesn't even really matter much for the story anyway. Surprisingly, she was the main character in 4 and 5, and now...
You can't have the baby, Michael. You can't have the baby.
Killed her off just like that, and Michael's off to find the baby that she hid. It felt bad watching Jamie go out like that. Such an important character to be butchered.
Bullshit!
So how do you continue the movie now that the main character's dead? You introduce new ones that you've never heard of before, and create ties to the Strode family, of course. The new inhabitants of Michael Myers' house and the new Strode family. Now, let me explain their relationship to the original Laurie Strode, Jamie Lee Curtis's character, because it can get a bit confusing to understand how they're all connected here. First, we have John Strode. He's the father of the family. He moved them all into the old Myers house after his brother had a hard time trying to sell it. His brother, who happens to be Morgan Strode, Laurie Strode's father. You see him in the first Halloween briefly. John Strode is his brother, which would make him Laurie's adoptive uncle. He's a complete asshole. He's one of those obviously abusive husbands and fathers. He's always in a shitty mood, and for some unexplained reason, he was especially mean to his daughter.
You think going to college is gonna make up for your mistakes, girl? Huh?
Please.
Lay off her, Dad.
John, can't we just sit down for once and try to be a family?
Oh, yeah, that's it, Deborah. Just keep slipping her the cash. You know, while you're at it, I got a great idea. Here, why don't you give her all of our goddamn money? Before you came around, everything was going fine. Till you landed on our doorstep. You and that little bastard.
And we can always take comfort in the fact that these kind of characters never make it far in horror movies. Deborah Strode is the wife of John. She's got a rocky relationship with her husband. She tries to stand up for their kids, which infuriates him further. Later on, she finds out that they're living in the old Myers house, and understandably, she's panicked by it. He only cares that he got a good deal on the house. And she's terrified that Michael's still out there and he's going to come back someday to get them. You know, like he's done for a couple of years now. And then Tim Strode, their son, he doesn't really contribute much to the plot. Actually, his most impactful line probably is,
"Looks like your little boy's got himself quite an imagination."
He's been having nightmares.
I think it's cool. I think it's cool.
He's also the character that happens to have sexual relations with his girlfriend Beth. A big no-no in horror movies, as we've established multiple times in multiple videos. One thing I do have to comment on is that the kills in this movie are actually pretty decent. As the series went on, they became gorier, so I do give it props for continuing that trend. My favorite one has to be the radio host, who's a total dick.
Michael Myers is long gone. There is no boogeyman.
Whoa! Does she get this riled up in the sack, Tim? I bet she wears crotchless panties and barks like a dog. Beth! What do you say, honey? You and me, yeah?
He wants to move the town's Halloween celebration to the Myers home, but he never gets the chance. When they find his body, the imagery is creepy as hell. Some little girl thinks it's raining red and it's the dude's body in the tree.
Mommy, it's raining. It's warm.
Definitely one of the more effective ones in the movie, and I think it's interesting that they chose to add more Strode family members to the Halloween plot, but I don't really understand the point of it. The movie treats them like cannon fodder, and they serve no importance to the overall story besides Kara Strode, the daughter of the family. She's also the mother of the little boy in the movie, Danny Strode, who can hear a voice every once in a while, and he sees Michael sometimes.
Mommy? Mom?
Not now, Danny.
Danny. Kill for him.
Mommy!
Halloween 6 makes it seem like they're almost grooming him to be the next Michael Myers, kind of like how they treated Jamie at the end of Halloween 4. Doesn't really amount to anything at all, and no characters really make a big deal out of it. It's just a plot point that's kind of there throughout the movie.
I see only one bastard in this house.
Get away from her.
You shut up.
Kara and Danny become some of the main characters in the movie when they befriend the other two, Tommy Doyle and Dr. Loomis, names you'll be familiar with if you watch the previous movies. At this point, Dr. Loomis is retired and he's just living off on his own. Dr. Wynn is trying to convince him to come back to work at Smith's Grove Sanatorium, in which Dr. Loomis has no interest in doing. Dr. Wynn also is a character from the first movie, the doctor that Loomis yells at about Michael learning how to drive. That's him right there, it's the same character. And props to Donald Pleasant, such an accomplished actor, and he stuck with his role of Dr. Loomis from the very beginning as long as he possibly could. Sadly, he did pass away about 8 months before the movie released theatrically, so he never got to see the opportunity to see his final performance on the big screen. As Dr. Loomis, his role is exactly what you'd expect it to be. We've seen it before and it's equally entertaining. He learns that Michael Myers might be back in town, and off he goes to try to find him. He's also still in the habit of scaring the shit out of people, then going on crazy rants, instead of simply saying, "Excuse me," and explaining the situation calmly.
It's extraordinary. Is everything all right?
Who are you?
This force, this thing that lived inside of him, came from a source too violent, too deadly for you to imagine. It grew inside him.
What makes you think he'll come back here?
His rage!
And Tommy Doyle, he was the little kid in the first movie that Laurie was babysitting. He's been living with the trauma of that original Halloween night, and he's completely obsessed with Michael Myers. He's seen as this weird guy in town that lives like a shut-in and just stares at people through his window. It's both creepy and absolutely hilarious at the same time.
He's always staring out his window. Last night I caught him watching me.
That must be Tommy. On a weirdness scale of 1 to 10, he rates about a 13. Supposedly some scary shit happened to him when he was a kid. Messed up his head pretty bad. He's harmless, though. Probably just lonely.
Or horny. Something you probably haven't felt in a while.
Tim.
And recognize him? That's right, it's a very young, fresh-faced Paul Rudd in his 20s. In his first movie. Technically, his first movie released in theaters was Clueless, but he did film Halloween 6 first. And I absolutely love Paul Rudd in this movie. Mind you, his acting is pretty terrible in it, but it is part of the movie's charm. He's not the talented actor we know and love today, which is understandable being his first movie, and one that's not exactly high quality to begin with. Sometimes it seems like he's reading lines very monotone, then blankly staring, waiting for a response from people.
Can I help you, sir?
Can you tell me if a bus arrived from Pontiac last night?
Sure did. Are you looking for someone?
Thank you.
Other times he's just way overacting with his facial expressions and mannerisms.
Tommy?
His performance in the movie is almost a complete copy and paste from his audition tape too, which is a joy to watch. You can tell that he was excited to try out for a Halloween movie and gave it a quirky, over-the-top feel.
What seems to be the problem?
It's my baby. There's been an accident.
What kind of accident?
Get me a doctor now! But get me a doctor now!
Once Kara meets Tommy in the movie, the ball really gets rolling for the story. Tommy found Jamie Lloyd's baby abandoned, and of course, instead of calling the police and informing them of a lost child, he swore to protect the baby himself from Michael, then drags Dr. Loomis back into the mess. And Kara, well, she just comes along to protect the baby too, and Tommy has all the answers. He's dedicated his life to researching Michael, and here's his theory. It's a mouthful. It's an info drop of craziness. So there's these ancient runes from around 500 BC, like an early alphabet system, usually carved out of stone or wood with a symbol on them. One of those symbols, the Mark of Thorn, represented a demon that spread sickness and death to the ancient Druid tribes. So to avoid this from happening, one child from each tribe was chosen to be inflicted with the Curse of Thorn. Then on the night of Halloween, they would kill their families. The sacrifice of one family meant that the rest of the tribe would be kept safe. So how does any of this tie into Michael, you ask? Well, the thorn symbol also happens to be a constellation that appears in the sky sometimes on Halloween night. When it appears, so does Michael. And he thinks there's a cult operating in Haddonfield that wants Jamie's baby, so that Michael can make the baby his final sacrifice. Though I stress again, why didn't he just kill Jamie at the beginning with the baby? His goal would have been accomplished before the movie even started. That's the detailed engine behind Michael Myers, take it as you will, that's how the movie explains it. And you have this old lady, Ms. Blankenship, that runs the boarding house where Tommy lives. She'd been almost mute and senile this whole movie until she gets incredibly excited about Halloween and starts telling Danny about Halloween's dark origins.
Oh, there was a marvelous celebration. People danced, and they played games, and they dressed up in costumes, hoping to ward off the evil spirits, especially the boogeyman.
What's the boogeyman?
I love old people in horror movies and creepy tales, but something's definitely off with her. She knows somehow that Danny hears this mysterious voice, just like Michael Myers apparently did before he killed his sister. And eventually this voice draws Danny to the Myers house. He walks over like a zombie and his mom has to chase him in a panic, where she has her typical horror movie funhouse moment. The killer is stalking her, the bodies of the victims are popping up all over the place. It's a funhouse.
Mommy?
It's okay. Danny, run!
Get him upstairs! Now!
And since they close the door in his face, Michael suddenly gives up, and Danny hears the mysterious voice again. And this is where all the secrets are revealed. He seems to be in a trance, and the Halloween cult reveals itself. Turns out that Dr. Wynn was the leader of the cult this whole time, and the mysterious man in black. I always wondered if that was his voice that Danny was hearing calling out to him from some void. I don't know, the movie doesn't explain it. But when you hear the voice, he pops up all of a sudden. Oh, and the old lady, Ms. Blankenship, also a cult member. And this whole scene is so hilarious to me, I busted out laughing. First of all, she's very much elderly. I would not have been afraid of her at all. Just one solid drop kick in the knee as hard as possible and watch her tumble like a rag doll. You'd be way quicker than she ever would be with that knife. And then you have this goofy looking cult member that comes in looking like a reject putty patrol. I love it. Instead of drop kicking him in addition to, just like she should have dropped the old lady, Kara thrusts herself out the second story window. Makes no sense.
Mrs. Blankenship! Oh God, hurry, we have to...
Hello, dear.
In the next immediate scene, she's gone, and Dr. Loomis and Tommy are outside claiming they were drugged. You mean you probably didn't film any connecting scenes and have to hand wave to the next plot point? That's more likely. And for the final act of the movie, the pair of Tommy and Loomis set out to rescue Kara, Danny, and the baby back to where it all began, Smith's Grove, where Dr. Wynn had been operating the cult in secret. While Loomis goes off to talk to Wynn, Tommy looks for Kara, and Dr. Wynn explains his motivations. He was always impressed with Dr. Loomis because he was the first to recognize what was inside Michael.
No. Because you were the first one to see it. And you recognized its power.
Michael?
Evil. Pure. Uncorrupted. Ancient.
And he wants Loomis to join them. Somehow Jamie's baby is supposed to bring them to the dawn of a new age. No further explanation provided. Again, that's all we really get. And then...
But you...
We're ready for you, Dr. Wynn.
Good. Well, we'll give Dr. Loomis a little time to think about it.
While Loomis is knocked out cold, Tommy encounters crazy people inside the sanatorium until he finds Kara, but oh no, the cult unleashed their weapon, Michael Myers, and he's coming to get rid of them. They're running away hauling ass while Michael's doing the calm serial killer walk behind them. First of all, when Kara's grabbed, I understand you're in a full-blown panic in this point, but she is obnoxiously loud. They escape Michael and make their way to the public levels of the sanitarium where Dr. Wynn's acting like a regular doctor again, instead of the cult leader he really is as he's preparing to enter some kind of surgery. And this final portion is like it's in a fast-forward rush to the ending. Danny is in a nearby room waiting with the baby, and Michael is stalking the hallways. You assume looking for Tommy and Kara that escaped him, but then he just decides to start killing everyone in his way, including doctors and the cult members alike. Another scene that's completely unexplained. He just turns on a switch and he goes. I like to think that that maybe he just got sick and tired of being used as a weapon and turned on them. It's the only thing that makes sense, but there's nothing really in the context of the movie that supports that can happen. And prepare to see my favorite kill in the entire movie. Michael's chasing them again through the tunnels, and some random guy that came out of nowhere, one of the staff, is running too. Watch this carefully.
Help me, please! Help me!
Did you see that? Michael smashes this man's head so tightly, so forcibly through the gate that he entered into another dimension. See, look, he's smashing his head through the gate. Next frame, Michael pushes the gate down, but no man is present. He's vanished. Interdimensional Halloween magic or awful editing? You decide. In the final confrontation, they enter this weird room that again leaves you with a bunch of questions. There's a bunch of babies in here in different stages of development and some tanks, and some pictures of DNA mixed with rune symbols. The hell is going on? Is cloning involved now somehow? Some kind of genetic experimentation? I don't know. It's like the filmmakers had no idea what to do with the story, so they threw in a little bit of everything in the mix and let the audience decide what the hell was going on. And as big of a threat as Michael is, his defeat is very lackluster, very easy. He gets surprise injected by some green liquid, some sort of tranquilizer. Then he just gets hit a lot and bleeds some gooey slime. And finally, after doing nothing but getting knocked out, Dr. Loomis appears out of nowhere and leads them a way out. For some reason, he doesn't want to go with them because he has some business to attend to here in Smith's Grove. Unexplained. Again. And we get a glimpse of where Michael was. Only his mask remains, and you hear Dr. Loomis screaming. Makes absolutely no sense. What happened? How this is edited makes it seem like Michael got back up, found Loomis, and killed him. Which makes this 2 seconds later incredibly distasteful. It's such a shocking what the fuck just happened ending, and not in a good way. But now it's time to examine the producer's cut and see how it changes some story details. Some of these confusing plot elements might make a little more sense, but again, let me remind you, this was not what was ever seen in theaters. The first half of the movie is fairly similar. Dr. Wynn gets some more screen time too. During the intro sequence with the baby and the cult, we also get Dr. Loomis talking about Halloween and Michael instead of Tommy. And also some flashback sequences showing Jamie at the end of Halloween 5. She gets kidnapped by the Man in Black and taken away by the cult. Okay, now we know how she ended up here. She'd been locked away as a prisoner of this cult the whole time. But then wait a minute, that still doesn't answer the question of who the baby's father is. Is he a cult member? Explanation coming soon. One thing I noticed about the producer's cut is that some of the kills are toned down a bit too from the original theatrical version for some reason. Like this guy in the theatrical cut looks like his head splits open or something. In the producer's cut, he just gets his neck broken. I don't get it. If you're not trying to avoid a certain rating, just go all out. And when John Strode gets electrocuted, his head doesn't explode anymore. I'm a fan of exploding heads for no reason. Now, one major story difference from the theatrical cut is that Jamie Lloyd doesn't get butchered on farm equipment. Michael finds her and stabs her, leaving her for dead. But this time she actually survives. She is in a really bad shape though, but she is alive and gets wheeled off to the hospital, where she starts getting treatment. And we get some flashbacks that give us some leads into who the father of the baby is. Jamie's being dragged into Smith's Grove, the secret lair of the cult, and this is where it gets a little uncomfortable, to say the least. They dress her in a white gown, they tie her up with her legs open, and summon Michael to do something.
Michael, please don't hurt me. Oh God, please forgive me.
If you still don't get where this is going, The suggestion, and actually it's not even just a suggestion, the movie downright says it later.
Michael, you can make him stop it. Don't kill the baby. You can stop it. You know whose baby it is, don't you?
Michael!
The baby is yours, isn't it? Isn't it, Michael?
Got some explaining to do. Michael! Come here, you got some explaining to do. No, he's got some explaining to do. Come here. Yeah, sit down. Sit down. I want you to watch something. Watch this. I want you to explain this to me.
Michael, please don't hurt me. Oh, God, please forgive me.
It's disgusting. Yeah, it's embarrassing, right? You don't have an explanation for it?
Michael!
The baby is yours, isn't it? Isn't it, Michael?
That's disgusting, man. Get out of here. Get the hell out of here before they call the cops on you. Yeah, not so tough now, are you? Also, that's my shirt. You're wearing my shirt. And to disrespect the character of Jamie Lloyd even further, let's go ahead and finish her off again. I mean, I guess it was a softer way for the character to go. She might not get impaled by a bunch of farm equipment by Michael, but she still gets killed. This time the Man in Black does it by sneaking into the hospital and shooting her. I still don't like that. You can already see how different the producer's cut ends up being. When Tommy explains all the runes and cult stuff to Kara, it's less wordy. It makes a little more sense since they cut out some of the fluff, and it further details Michael's final sacrifice, the baby. If he kills the baby, that's the end of Michael's family, and Michael's power would end. And the curse would transfer to another child, which explains Danny's role in the story. He's the one that would inherit the new Michael Myers power. The cult wants to make him the next Michael. It still doesn't really address why Michael didn't just kill Jamie when they first had her. Why is the baby even necessary? In the theatrical version, you just have to guess and assume everything and then formulate some sort of coherent story out of it. And this time when Dr. Wynn reveals himself as the Man in Black and captures Kara, instead of just throwing her into a cell and kidnapping her like Princess Peach, they dress her up and tie her up just like Jamie, while Tommy and Loomis set out to rescue her as they did before. This time Tommy gives Loomis some complicated explanation of how to stop Michael for good. He thinks Michael is under the influence of an evil rune, and there's also runes of light and protection. If he can use their power to trap the rune of Thorn, the energies would cancel themselves out, and the evil can be destroyed. What? He is just pulling stuff out of his ass at this point. That's the explanation he gave Dr. Loomis, and of course Dr. Loomis ignores it and just runs away. Loomis still has his meeting with Dr. Wynn, this time in his cult outfit. But in this cut, this entire movie was somehow manipulated by Dr. Wynn, because he knew that Loomis would lead them to Michael's baby. His entire goal was to get the baby. The man's a lunatic.
Look around you, Sam. Madness everywhere. Famine, war, a great plague. These are signs that we must restore balance to the natural order of things. We merely provide the means.
Michael?
We've given him the power, the gift of Thorn. I am its deliverer. I follow it. Act as its guardian. I protect Michael. Watch over him.
Dr. Wynn ultimately wants Dr. Loomis to replace him for some reason that's also never explained as the new leader of Smith's Grove and the cult. And there's a couple more minutes that fills in how Tommy found the secret areas of the cult. He followed one of them through the different hallways and found the chamber where the rituals take place. None of this was in the theatrical version of the movie. Dr. Wynn's preparing the sacrifice, Michael has to kill the baby, lose his powers, then they'll transfer him to Danny, and then he kills his mother, then they have a new little unkillable monster in their hands in the form of Danny Strode. Okay, this is extremely cryptic, but it makes some sort of sense, at least. Would have never guessed any of this from the theatrical cut. I actually like this version better because Kara tries to speak to Michael's humanity by reminding him that the baby's his, and he doesn't have to do what he's told, so he's just kind of frozen for a moment. And Tommy reveals that he stole one of their uniforms.
Back off! Untie her! Do as he said! Do it!
You should join us. You have talent.
And then Michael's sent after them in a final chase. Everything is eerily empty, lights are going on and off, the alarms are activated. It's a much more intense ending sequence, and all that nonsense that Tommy was speaking about before with the protective runes. He throws a bunch of rocks on the ground, wipes his blood on the floor. It works. Somehow it actually works. Whatever nonsense he was spewing, this is it. I love this scene because of how dumbfounded he looks right after, like, oh shit, I can't believe all that crap I just made up actually worked. And then Michael just stands there like an idiot while Dr. Wim examines him.
What have they done to you?
And the group leaves like in the original cut, and Loomis goes back in for whatever business he still has left to attend to, in another confusing ending. Remember that background scream from the theatrical cut? Well, that was from this scene. So apparently Dr. Wynn transferred the symbol of Thorn to Dr. Loomis, somehow dooming him to be the leader of the cult now.
Michael's gone. It's your game now, Dr. Loomis.
And Michael stole Wynn's man in black clothing and escaped to be free again. Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, is exhausting. The plot is all over the damn place. Cryptic, convoluted, full of cults, magical symbols, curses, Halloween, Michael Myers. I rewatched this movie, both versions, several times before making this video, and my head was spinning. So I want to hear your thoughts down below. What are your thoughts on Halloween 6, and do you prefer the theatrical cut or the producer's cut? I'm done with this movie. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe, click the bell for notifications, and hit that like button. And if you'd like to support my work creating future videos like this one, please consider joining my Patreon, which gives you access to my Patreon feed, filled with exclusive updates and progress reports on upcoming projects. I'd also like to thank my current patrons and channel members for their continued support. I'll catch you guys later.